Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. Another week going to be in the books after this show today as we prepare you for NFL Week 16, Eagles versus Commanders, and NFC East matchup. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Football Friday, brother?
Tired. December 20th, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
The Christmas holiday season is wearing on me. Let's say that.
Yeah, it is for me, and it's already – I woke up, I'm like, holy shit, it's December 20th. I hope my girlfriend and my family or anybody that's isn't listening right now. I got a lot of shopping to do, John, in the 23rd or 24th to get everybody done.
Yeah.
I have not checked that off the list yet this year, so I will have to do that after the game on Sunday, on Monday, and see what I can do.
Yeah, well, deadlines spur action. That's what they say.
Yes,
so
they do.
We'll see if it works out for both of us.
Good stuff there. We'll have a great show today for everybody. Appreciate everybody checking in already in the chat box. And for those who are listening to the show after the fact, don't forget to hit that like button for us. It's one of the best things you can do to help us grow as a show and as a channel. If you're watching and you're not subscribed, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and consider becoming a member here on JAKIB. We are doing giveaways almost daily at this point for the great people who are members on the channel. In the Christmas spirit here on JAKIB Sports. We appreciate everybody for watching. John, Eagles Commanders matchup number 2 of the year. How you feeling about it on this Football Friday before we dive into some of the details and get up to Les Bowen at 8:20 who will join us?
I think it's more of a test, obviously, for Washington than Philadelphia. That's sort of the upstart team, the upstart part of this equation, and it's a big game for them. Against a sort of entrenched, big-time contender that's been there for a number of years now. And we all know what Washington went through with Daniel Snyder, now trying to turn it around and doing a good job, at least early in the process. So I think it's a really measuring stick game for them. And, when you're good, 12-2 good, you're generally going to get everybody's fastball. You're going to get everybody's best stuff. So, but, that's generally what makes the good teams the good teams. So I look at Philadelphia and I see a much more talented team, a much more gifted team. And if they handle their business, they're probably going to win the game. But big game for Washington as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Big game here for the Birds. Washington may be bigger, John, because they're fighting for that final playoff spot. I think they're going to get that final playoff spot, but it is a meaningful game for them to try and get a win or at least put up a good performance. John, what's their injury report look like? I know the Eagles are looking pretty healthy at this point. I'm not sure yet if Bryce Huff will be elevated for the game. I don't know if you know anything about that, but just a couple guys missed yesterday. Sidney Brown, Landon Dickerson are limited yesterday. And that's it. A couple guys limited yesterday, Landon, Sidney, Bryce, and AJ, but they'll all play, I assume. And how's the Commander's side look for the injury report?
Much more significant, as most teams have. That's been one of the major advantages for the Eagles. They've been relatively healthy, but same thing. Everybody's trying to push because it is such a big game. For Washington. Haven't been able to get interesting. Dante Fowler's probably the most interesting one simply because he was dealing with a groin injury, did not practice yesterday, was limited earlier in the week. So that's trending probably in a negative direction for them. And he's been a bit of a surprise as that edge rusher. Tight end John Bates was out with an illness. You never know how that's going to go. Jonathan Allen is sort of there. Bryce Huff, they hasn't been playing. They activated his 21-day practice window. Very good player when he's healthy. Has missed most of the year with a pec injury. So they've listed him as limited. illness again with Sam Cosmi, who's one of their best offensive linemen. Illness, excuse me if I said injury.
No, you said illness. You're good. Yep.
So that's a concern. But yeah, much more question marks on the Washington side of it than the Philadelphia side of it. Although, because you saw what happened to Landon Dickerson in the game, the Eagles didn't practice really on Wednesday. It was a walkthrough. They've scaled back to the walkthroughs on Wednesday. He was out there throwing around the medicine ball. I'm sure everybody saw it. And yesterday was a full practice, and he was limited. AJ also scaled back to limited. Remember that hip drop tackle with it?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't just say there's nothing going on there. But, the Eagles obviously are not going to tip their hand until late in the process. The injury report comes out late this afternoon. It's a waste of time asking Nick Sirianni injury questions. I think they're going to play, but because they've been out there, they've been watching. But, this team is hyper-focused on competitive advantage, as we all talk about. So we'll see. On today is a big day. If they practice fully, obviously they're going to play. But if not, just put an asterisk on there.
Yeah, well, they added the knee for AJ yesterday, right? For Wednesday, it was just rest, and yesterday they added knee. Any gut inclination on what that is, John, or any word, any report that you can share with us? Is something from that hit nagging AJ, or is this more?
Oh yeah, no question. A lot of people thought it was an ankle. The Twitter doctors,
right?
Maybe it's not related. I mean, I always go back to Ben Van Sumeren. We got hurt in practice. People do get hurt in practice.
AJ
happens.
didn't, or didn't AJ? Didn't that happen to AJ in week
one? Yeah, early in the season. A couple of years ago, Jordan Mailata got hurt in practice, missed a number of games. So it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. But yeah, that hip drop tackle, if it is, we'll see if they get fined for it on Saturday. But if that were the play, it did look a little bit ugly, so people were concerned about that.
Yeah, it did. It definitely looked pretty ugly on that play. We'll see how it all plays out. Overall, though, pretty healthy football team to be in Week 16, to be here in December 20th. The Birds are in pretty good shape. John, speaking of fines, you don't think anything will come down more serious than a fine for Jaylen Carter, do you? With the slap that he had to the Steelers player, where he had the personal foul. You don't think anything will happen there, do you?
I think he'll get fined, but yeah,
just fine though, right?
Yeah.
There's no suspension or anything.
I don't think so. No. You got to have a litany of offenses, and you might want to calm it down a little bit, because at some point it might turn into that. But I don't think we're at that process yet. But he'll definitely get fined for that.
Yeah, we'll see.
So don't get up in arms, people. He's going to get fined.
I'm not going to get up in arms.
I'm not talking about you. But every time I post the fines on, and by the way, the Eagles haven't been fined for quite a streak, 5, 6, 7 weeks, somewhere around there. Haven't had one fine. They're going to have some fines this week.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. The games get ugly, games get physical, fines start flying for the Philadelphia Eagles. John, big game though. Week 16, Birds 10 straight wins. Will they get to 11 straight wins? What's the keys to the game for this game, John, for the Eagles going into this matchup? I look back at the first time that these two teams played, and it was 10-6 Commanders going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, people forget that.
We had a 20-point fourth quarter, a 20-point explosion in the fourth quarter, really led by Saquon Barkley, who ran for almost 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in that football game. Is it as simple as that, John? Get back on the Saquon's back and let him run all over this team, because they don't have a great run defense.
He didn't. But that was the thing. I mean, Dan Quinn talked about it this week. I think people forget the way that game went. And it was an ugly affair. And as you mentioned, they led at the end of 3 quarters, and then the Eagles offensive line kind of wore them down. And Dan Quinn was talking about it, and they did a really good job for 3 quarters. And he said, you gotta keep your same discipline, your same gap technique, your same gap fulfillment, your same technique from in snap 5 as snap 25. What he was saying, because they got beat by Saquon late in that game, very late. In fact, those 2 touchdowns were under 5 minutes to go, 20 seconds apart. Where they kind of fell apart. They had the Eagles had the first touchdown run,
Right.
a great block by, I forget which one was first, Cam Jurgens.
I think it was the Cam Jurgens block one.
But either were, they were 20 seconds apart, and then they got the kickoff, I think, and fumbled, and the Eagles scored right away again. So they did a pretty good job on Saquon for 55 minutes. And then it kind of just wore away. So the Eagles got to play better than they played in that game. I wouldn't want to be in that position of needing 2 plays like that late in the game to put them away. So I do think a lot of people just put it in the rearview mirror quickly and say, hey, that was a tough game, and it was a tough game. And they managed to persevere and give credit to the offensive line first, I would say, and then Saquon. But nonetheless, you still have that offensive line. Hopefully, if Landon's out there, and you still have Saquon. They may or may not, as I mentioned, get Jonathan Allen back. But I think they're hyper focused, from at least intimating from Dan Quinn's quotes about stopping Saquon first. So you might have to go the other routes, and that complicates more. Is AJ 100%? We don't know. Is Jaylen really back? We don't know. Going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The one guy, I think that one difference here in this game between from the last time we played this football team, which came, what was it, week 11 that we played? No, week 9, week 10, somewhere in there. We played the Commanders. Yeah. Well, they didn't have Marshon Latimore, the guy they traded for at the trading deadline. He'll be out there this week. You think he makes a difference, John? Like, when I think about their trade for Latimore, I said they did that because of the Philadelphia Eagles, right? You try and match up with the teams in your division best. And the Eagles have 2 beasts at wide receiver. So you got to get good corners. You got to get good guys in coverage to try and mitigate that the best you can. How much will Marshon Latimore have an impact on this game, in your opinion?
Yeah, very good player. For years they've been trying to get through with Benjamin St-Juste and Emmanuel Forbes, who they ultimately cut. AJ Brown completely destroyed that poor kid's career.
Literally ruined it. AJ's had big games versus the Commanders in the past.
Yeah. And they're talented guys, but man, they that's what's so strange. That's what's so unique about the Eagles and their rookie corners. And that's a hard position to play as a rookie. And it's almost like quarterback in a way that you might have talent like Forbes and you lose your confidence in your shot. And
it's a really tough position, man.
Yeah, he never recovered. And hopefully he can reboot his career somewhere else. But I don't know if anybody signed him. I'm sure somebody picked him up because he's got talent. But and Latimore's been doing it for a long time. Latimore's a real legit cornerback 1 in the NFL. That said, I always like the Eagles matchup when they're healthy at wide receiver versus any corner. And they have a rookie corner who's playing very well. Opposite Latimore now.
Sainristil, or however you say that name.
Sainristil, however you say it. I apologize, but from Michigan, he's done a really good job in taking over one of the other starting corners spots. So they're a lot better than they used to be. You knew that was going to happen when they hired Dan Quinn. He's a very good defensive coach. The issues this year, as you mentioned, have been up front. They're not nearly – that used to be their strength. At one point they had 4 first-round picks up front when Montez Sweat was still there. And Yeah, 5 actually. Who am I forgetting? When Kerrigan was still there, obviously later in his career, and Sweat then you had Darren Payne, Jonathan Allen. They had a 5th one, I can't remember. But they were really gifted up front, and sort of the back 7 was the issue. Now the back 7's really good, and they're struggling up front. So it's always tough to get those things to match up at the same time. And I would say their linebackers are the strength of the defense. I think people will remember Frankie Luvu from that first game. He had a great game. And he's their second best linebacker. Their best linebacker is going to the Hall of Fame, and that's
You weren't
Bobby
thinking of
Wagner.
Chase Young, were you?
Chase Young, yes, thank you. So, yeah, they had 5 first-round picks. Obviously, Chase never lived up to the billing. But Montez Sweat was a very good player. Payne was a very good player, still is. Jonathan Allen was the best player, and he's been hurt for the majority of this year. But now it's the back 7 that is really good. And they're struggling to get it going up front. Jonathan Allen would help that a lot, but I have no idea where he is. It's a surprise he's back. They thought he was going to be gone for the season, so it seems like they're pushing it. But we'll see. We'll see if they activate him.
Good stuff there. We'll get to one super chat here, and then we'll get to our commercial break. We have Les Bowen, the great Les Bowen, set to join us here in a couple minutes on Birds 365. Josh Herman checks in. Josh, appreciate your support of the show. He says, Big Z, don't sleep on the commies in the playoffs. Playing a team 3 times is difficult. These divisional games are tough. Also, John, Jaylen, Uso better? Yes, that's a little wrestling question. He throws in the tail end of it.
I don't know. I don't know Jaylen. There's no Jaylen. There's Jimmy. There's Jay.
I think he meant Jay, and it might have auto-corrected to Jaylen.
Maybe. But as far as the 3 game, I don't believe in that at all. The 3 games, it's tough to be. If you look at contextually, if you're much better, you win the 3rd game. It's just close. I think the number is 15-9. The team that's 1-2 wins the 3rd one. So yeah, I don't buy into that at all. If you're much better, you win. If it's even and you happen to get through the regular season with a couple of really close wins, maybe that's different. So it's always contextual. But I wouldn't be concerned about the Washington Commanders more than a lot of teams in the playoffs for the Eagles, even the Tampa Bays of the world, for instance, who might be in the Eagles' head a little bit, even though the Eagles are more talented.
Okay, so I see what he's saying. He called him Jalen Reigns, and John didn't like it, so now he's calling him Jalen Uso, Johnny Mac. That's what he meant.
Well, that's closer for the level. Yeah. Can't be number 1, No. Patrick Mahomes is Roman Reigns from a wrestling standpoint.
Yeah, there you go. All right, good stuff, everybody. Hit that like button for us. We'll get to our commercial break now, and then the great Les Bowen joining us next here on Birds 365. Before I take that break, I want to tell you guys about our great sponsor. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show today. It's BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. Use the promo code YouTube150. It gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit, and you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go over to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa, and use that promo code YouTube150. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, with Les Bowen on Birds 365.